Okay, it's time to talk about the Uktena in a Werewolf the Apocalypse LARP. Well, start off by understanding what the Uktena are. They're one of the Pure Lander tribes. There used to be 3 Pure Lander tribes: the Uktena, the Wendigo, and the Croton. The Uktena were known as older brother, the Croton were known as middle brother, and the Wendigo were known as little brother. Well, the Croton ended up sacrificing themselves, and that created a divide between younger, or little brother, and older brother. They both kind of blamed each other for the death of the Croton and the fact that they weren't involved. And that kind of lives to this day. However, they do have a common bond, and that's hatred of the Wormcomers, which I'll get into in a moment. Let's break down what the Uktena are. At heart, the Uktena come from the Native American tribes that are primarily throughout the South and the East mostly. They did take up a lot of the southern Croton lands. You're going to see a lot of human tribes that are incorporated, such as the Cherokee, the Creek. In my personal game, we've used the thought to be extinct Timucuan tribe, the Seminoles, and so on. They also have absorbed some other groupings, like there's Uktena in Hawaii. They've absorbed a number of mulatto, some of the immigrant Chinese that came across, and so on. A lot of those secondary cultures that have a mystic heritage to them. So if you are going to take pure breed, that's going to be one of the things you're going to look at. When creating an Uktena, your auspice is going to determine really where your traits are going. Abilities are going to be spread out based on auspice and your gifts and so on as well. However, there are 3 abilities that are they're somewhat unique to the Uktena. So I'm going to cover those really quick. Gesture. The ability to communicate without noise. Functionally, it's the same thing that like military personnel do, where they're going to have set hand signals and so on. Uktena can actually convey a lot more via it, depending on what level of gesture you have. Then there's Stickball. Now, some people will laugh at this because it's like a sport. It's basically like an offshoot of athletics. Stickball is important to the Uktena because it's a way for them to handle challenges. They're not as big on the martial challenges as some of the other tribes. They like gamecraft, and Stickball is one of their favorite. It is a way for them to handle challenges without being overly bloody about it. The last one is a new type of lore. It's called Tribal lore. It tends to focus on the human tribes and what you know about them, because they all have different cultures, different ritualistic activity, different customs. Okay. Then you got to kind of get into some of the lingo, because they do have a definitive lingo. I mean, first off, North and Central America are referred to as Turtle Island by them, and they tend to refer to the Pure Landers themselves, either the Pure Ones or the First People. Each of the auspices has their own terminology as well. They'll refer to Ragabashes, tricksters, or questioners. They refer to Theurges as shamans, medicine makers, or kahunas. Obviously, kahuna comes from the Hawaiian version. Philodox will be called peacemakers, peace leaders, lawgivers, or kumi. Again, Hawaiian. Galliards are pretty much called moon dancers across the board, and warriors are either called war leaders, warriors, or ali'i in Hawaii. Outside of that, there's only a few things that you need to know about the lingo itself. Terminology. The Great Mother. That would be the terminology they use for Gaia itself. Grandfather Spider. That's the Weaver. Grandfather Serpent is the worm. Grandmother Smoke is the wild. Then there's the one that confuses people the most. Wormcomers and Wormbringers. I hear it misused the most. Wormbringers are the European settlers that came across, the humans. Specifically, the humans and their descendants. Wormcomers are the Garou that came with them. It's the Garou and the kinfolk. It's almost exclusively used for them. I've heard many people call Garou Wormbringers, which it's that they shouldn't be called that. When you're playing Uktena, you have to understand some things about them. First off, the Tribal Totem. Uktena is a mysterious totem that is a hybrid type spirit that lives under the water. It can be fearsome, but it's highly intelligent. It's got a lot of wisdom. There's a number of other spirits that follow it, especially snake spirits or Inadu. Inadu is kind of like a father snake spirit almost, although there are going to be lesser spirits for all the various breeds of snake, and it's got some other ones that follow it too. And then it's got the greater totems. Totem Respect, Wild Turkey. Most people would be thinking, well, Wild Turkey, it's either going to be a drink or it's going to be Thanksgiving dinner. Not true. Wild Turkey is very offended by the domestication of turkeys. They tend to be very alert, very watchful, and very quick to raise alarm. They make perfect sentry packs, and they are a totem of respect. They are a very prideful spirit. You got a couple of war spirits. Gila Monster. Primarily, you're going to mainly see this one in the southwest United States, like where the Arizona and New Mexico, where we get some desert regions and so on, where the Gila Monsters are strong. It is a very lethargic totem. It's slow to anger, but when you do anger it, it is one of the most tenacious fighters there are. And its packs tend to be the same way. And you got Hummingbird, which is almost the complete opposite. Very swift and precise in the way it does things. It can't stay in one place for long. It hovers. It's a nasty little fucking totem. Wisdom, Dragonfly. Now I'm going to say this is a different Dragonfly than the one that has been used in my game as the Sept Totem. This Dragonfly is known as a swamp predator. It is a spirit of wisdom. It's known for being ever watchful, and when it's ready, it explodes into action. In some ways, it reminds me of Gila Monster, but not quite. And then you got one totem of cunning that they mentioned, which is Roadrunner. Roadrunner is very agile of body, agile of mind. They're known for being, flexible, both physically and mentally. These are the kind of spirits that are allied to the Uktena. Now, the Uktena have a major flaw. They have curiosity. If you ever heard the term curiosity killed the cat, well, it's killed more Uktena than it ever has cats. The Uktena are known for collecting secrets. If you can get a secret out of an Uktena, you probably achieved something. Or they played you in some way. They get a bad rap. A lot of people think that they walk too close to the worm. But the Uktena believe that they have to go as close as they do because they're the only ones who can handle it. It's one of those cases of, I'm going to do it because I don't trust anybody else to do it. This kind of leads into the camps. And you'll see a common theme here. First up, we have the Earth Guides. I was an Earth Guide for a while with my character. I played a character that became one of the most powerful, influential PC Uktena in a national organization, and I played it all the way through. I took a vow that when I became an elder, I'd play it for 1 year and then I'd retire it in some way, which just recently happened. So I do have a little bit of experience with Uktena. I was part of the Earth Guides for a while. Earth Guides are collectors, but they're collectors of culture, human culture especially. They like to take dances, poetry, religions, anything that's kind of cultural. They collect it to themselves, they examine it, and they study it. They have a lot of lore under their belts. Kind of an offshoot of them is called the Skywalkers. Now, I know there's going to always be bad Star Wars jokes there, but the Skywalkers are kind of the spiritual version of the Earth Guides. They concern themselves in the other side, in the Umbra. They collect information about spirits. They collect favors from spirits. They collect gifts, rights, whatever the spirits can teach. Then you get your Bane Tenders. Now I'm going to say this outright because everybody talks about them. Nobody else at the Uktena really knows about Bane Tenders. First off, it's one of our secrets, and those who would reveal it usually end up dead. But there's the other aspect, which is Bane Tenders aren't very good. They're not playable really in a troop, because what a Bane Tender does is when they trap a spirit, a Bane, and trap beneath earth because it's too powerful to destroy, the Bane Tender is the one who pretty much sits on it, like a chicken hatching an egg. They're going to be the one who sits on it, make sure the bonds are still strong. Everything is done correctly. They become eternal sentries. It's not something suitable to a PC. Then you get your web walkers. They embrace technology, which is kind of odd, but they do. They treat it like a servant rather than a master. They tend to be allied with glass walkers quite frequently. Then you have your ghost dancers. And ghost dancers sound a lot like the earth guys, except they're not really collectors so much as they believe that the earth needs to be cleansed and purified to what it once was. And they're always actively working towards that. A very popular camp is the Scouts. The Scouts basically, they go out and they collect info. They act as scouts. They scout out stuff. They collect all the info. They collect what they can, and they bring it back to the nation or to the tribe. There's an offshoot called the Raiders. The Raiders, they collect fetishes, talons, lore, rights, you name it, but they don't share it. Not even with the tribe. They tend to take it and they put it in their own little cache, or they bury it in the earth. A lot of people fear that when they get stuff that's worm tainted, that even though they say they destroy it, that perhaps they don't. And they think this will lead to some great ruin. Then you have the Path Dancers. This one causes a lot of trouble. Again, we get back to the collection motif. They collect gifts and rituals from other tribes. So they're going to try to steal what they can. They're going to try to barter for what they can. They're very odd in the fact that they don't have your typical Uktena type stuff. They're going to go out there and they're going to try to learn Lambent Flame from the Silver Fang. They're going to try to learn Clap of Thunder from the Shadow Lords. They're going to try to learn Odious Aroma from the Bone Nars. They're going to go out there and try to learn Rite of the Pizza. They're going to try to learn the Rite of the Honorable Oath. They might try to learn Beltane. That's what they do. That causes a lot of problems. The last one, as every tribe pretty much has a camp that is like a dirty little secret, is the Society of the Bitter Frost. Basically, they still harbor hatred over the Wormcomers' invasion of the Pure Lands. And as such, they've carried over, and a lot of people believe they've allied with Grandfather Serpent, aka the Worm. And they're very anti-Wormcomer. There have been rumors that they've killed a number of Wormcomers, even in recent years. So they're a very murderous group. And most people don't talk about them because it leads to wars. Some of the other things to realize about the Uktena: they are very connected to the land. They are very connected to the Pure Lands themselves. This tends to make things a little bit difficult because werebears, werecougars, even occasionally the weregators, the Uktena have a more healthy respect for, because of the naturalness of the location and the heritage. And a lot of times they are going to be tied to those people, to those changing breeds, more so than any of the European group ever will be. And the European group won't understand it. Just like they're connected to the Fae and such, although they tend to focus on the Native American fairies, which are called the Nehi. Just like, they deal with, wizards more. They're very eclectic people, and they do a lot of things that nobody really expects. key thing, I guess, to being an Uktena is you have to be very curious, very covetous, and very mysterious. If you can do this, you can play a good Uktena. It doesn't matter what auspice you are. You can do this with any of the auspices. The key is play your character, establish your identity, and then by the time you hit Foster, find the camp that suits you best. Or it'll find you. And if it finds you, take the offer. It's probably for the best. I think that about covers, how to play an Uktena, really. The only thing about it, the only thing I could mention other than that is, when making one, I've mentioned some of the abilities. Don't forget your linguistics. You probably want to speak a Native American language or two. Don't forget about your influences. The subculture influence, which is tribal, is sometimes good for Uktena. Bureaucracy can be if you're dealing with the idiots that actually, manage legislation that allows for reservations and such. Transportation can be in there. There's any number of things you can do with an Uktena, and of course, occult. That's the obvious one. Backgrounds wise, they do have pure breed, but it doesn't tend to be very high because they've mixed with so many others. I mean, I've seen some Wendigo, high pure breeds that have referred to Uktena as mudblood because they've muddied their blood, and they've looked down on them for it. So it's not a big deal right there, but totem points, spirit allies, even potentially contacts allies, those all work. The various influences I mentioned, ancestors can work. You just gotta kind of pick your poison. Okay, I'm fairly tired, so I'm gonna let you go on that. And next up, the cannibalistic Wendigo. Ciao bella.